Hello again, everybody. Chris VanMeter here with another Versus video. Today I'm going to be playing against David McDarby, and I have a really awesome green-red aggro deck that I want to take a look at. Now, what I'm playing here isn't just your traditional aggressive deck with green and red. I do have Burning Tree Emissary and Flinthoof Boar like most of the decks do, but I also have some accelerants with Arbor Elf and Gyre Sage that let me cast some really big spells like Thundermaw Hellkite and Huntmaster of the Fells. Now, while I do still have the Burning Tree package that lets me accelerate into a Flinthoof Boar to pressure my opponents, Burning Tree Emissary also lets me cast a Domri Raid on turn 3 along with the Burning Tree Emissary so that I can fight one of my opponent's creatures, which is really great, especially if I'm on the play, and I can even do it turn 2 after playing an Arbor Elf. It also gives me another red mana to cast into my Hell Rider if I happen to be short on red mana with just, say, like 3 forests and a mountain. But again, I do still have the early game with Arbor Elf and Gyre Sage to accelerate. Gyre Sage also gets very big very quickly, similar to Tarmogoyf in the Eternal formats, and he does put a lot of pressure onto your opponents. Now, these decks in the past have traditionally played Wolfir Silverheart along with their Thundermaw Hellkites as their big creatures. This time I opted to play Huntmaster of the Fells instead. I feel like Huntmaster is very good right now just because of what happened this last weekend in Baltimore at the Open. Lingering Souls took the format by storm, along with Blood Artist, and Huntmaster of the Fells is very good against both of those cards. So I'm definitely looking forward to playing more Huntmasters as we move forward. Gore-Clan Rampager is on the same boat as Huntmaster. It's also very good against Lingering Souls. It's also very good in this deck against Boros Reckoner. This deck is traditionally weak to a Boros Reckoner, but Gore-Clan Rampager allows us to give the creature that he's blocking trample so that we only have to deal 3 damage to that Boros Reckoner, and he normally isn't going to be able to use the trigger to kill the creature that he's blocking because it's going to be +4/+4. Hell Rider, I'm down to 2 now. Normally it's just a staple to run 4 in this deck, but I don't think he's very good right now because of Lingering Souls, even though it still helps us to push through some damage. But he is great against control decks. I feel like there's still going to be control decks in the format, and I'm going to wait for him to prove me wrong before I cut him from the deck. Thundermaw Hellkite and Bonfire of the Damned are both very good against the Lingering Soul decks. Thundermaw Hellkite is also very good against the control decks in the format that some people are still going to be playing, so I definitely wanted to play 4 Thundermaw Hellkites. I don't feel like Wolfir Silverheart is very good right now. Thundermaw Hellkite just trumps him on every street. Domri Raid is awesome in this deck. I do have 30 creatures, so Domri his +1 is almost always going to draw me a creature. Well, not always, but I'm going to be a favorite to draw a creature each time I +1 him. Plus, a lot of my creatures tend to have a higher power than their casting cost, or on par with their casting cost, which means that when I'm fighting my opponent's creatures, I'm usually going to be killing their creatures and keeping my creature around. Now, Bonfire is also very important right now, just because last weekend again we saw Lingering Souls just completely take the format by storm yet again, and Bonfire is just a great card against them. So I definitely want to be playing 4 Bonfires. That's the main reason that I only have 3 Domris. I still wanted to play 30 creatures, and I didn't want to play 4 Domris and 3 Bonfires, so I'd flipped it. Now I do have 23 land. There's a lot of basics, which a lot of people tend to point out, but a lot of the spells in the deck have pretty hefty color requirements as far as like double red. We have quite a few green mana requirements, especially early on. So I definitely wanted to play a lot of basics. I do have a 24th land in the sideboard. I wanted to play 24 lands so I can board it in against matchups where my mana guys are going to be dying, or I'm bringing in other high casting cost cards. But again, having the 24th land makes it so I'm going to be casting my big spells, and fairly often I'm going to be bonfiring for 3, X = 3. So that's the main deck. Let's go ahead and take a look at the sideboard, and then we can figure out what kind of options we have for the rest of the decks in the format. Okay, so let's take a look at our sideboard and what cards we have for what decks we're planning on combating. So we do have Mizzium Mortars and Pillar of Flame as some additional removal spells on our sideboard, along with the Bonfires in our main deck. Pillar of Flame is a concession to Voice of Resurgence being a dominant card in the format, as well as the Naya decks recently have shied away from Burning Tree Emissary Flinthoof Boar, and they are now playing String Rootgeist and Voice of Resurgence. So Pillar of Flame is just a very, very good card right now. I honestly wanted to play it in the main deck, but because I'm playing Domri, I can't afford to play more than like 7 non-creature, non-land spells in the deck. and Bonfire is just better in the main deck right now than Pillar of Flame. But I do have pillars in the board. The mortars are primarily to kill Loxodon Smiter. So I'm going to be attacking with my creatures, and Loxodon Smiter is just a giant wall. So mortars, his primary role is just to kill Loxodon Smiter. Thragtusk is here to come in against the other aggressive decks, like the Mono Reds and the Blitz, as well. So like against those decks, we're going to have mortars, Pillar of Flame, Thragtusk, and like our own Burning Tree Emissaries and Flint of Force to block, to keep alive, keep ourselves alive, and then once we just start casting Thragtusk, they just really don't have any way to beat us. So this package is just very good against the Voice of Resurgence decks and the aggressive decks. Now, Gruul War Chant is an interesting card. It's not seen much play. I know Adam Prozac played it recently in an open in his red splash green aggro deck, but it's primarily here as a pseudo answer to Boros Reckoner. So Boros Reckoner is a huge problem for this deck, as it's always going to 2-for-1 us. We don't really have any way to effectively remove it without losing another one of our creatures. So the plan is against the decks with Boros Reckoner is to pillar and or mortars their creatures away, cast a War Chant when they have a Boros Reckoner, so that we can just continue to attack, so they're not able to actually block our creatures. So I definitely am excited to see how War Chant works out moving forward in the format. I don't believe David's playing a Boros Reckoner deck, so it's just going to sit in my sideboard all lonely and dusty, but I definitely recommend Gruul War Chant moving forward. Ground Seal is just a concession to the Reanimator decks. There really isn't much else to play in these colors to fight them. So I do have the Ground Seal. Pillar is also very good against them, just to hit their early mana guys like Avacyn's Pilgrim and Arbor Elf. Just because if they're not accelerating and casting their big spells on turn 3, then we do have a chance to take over the game. And then I do have Castled Wolfrun as the 24th land. I'll bring it in, anytime I want to bring in the Thragtusk so that I can feasibly cast my additional 5 drops. But it's also just very good against the control decks where really all I have to do is stick 1 threat and I can just ride it with Castled Wolfrun. So that's the sideboard and the deck. Let's go ahead and take a look at what Mr. McDarby is playing, and then we'll get ready to battle.